This is a 1953 Silvertone radio record player sold by Sears Roebuck. Now what's interesting about this is if we look at some of the areas, we can see that this finish was basically a paint. There's not much color, whereas in the front there, the thin part, you see some of this this graining, which shows through the paint. Now this is an oak veneer, so there is some character to it, but it was, in fact, painted. And that is the hard part about restoring one of these, is achieving this blonde finish. But wait, there's more. Let me turn this around and I'll show you. This is one end at the bottom, and the wood is largely intact there, but it's got some damage. But I'm going to turn it around and show you the worst part. This is the other side of the cabinet, and if we can zoom in here, we can see that the damage has actually gotten much deeper, and so some of the veneer is missing. Now, I'm not going to refinish the entire cabinet. That's what this video is all about, is how can we make this cabinet look good without completely stripping it. This finish is difficult to do. Now that this is up on its side, we can take a little closer look at the damage on the one end. Most of it's laying down pretty well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow a little glue underneath there with an air gun and attach those down first. So I'm going to do a little quick demonstration of that. Then we'll come back after this has been repaired. This is a door that's covered with veneer. I'm just using it as a workbench. I don't have this piece, so I'm just going to show how one might do this piece right here. What I have here is some glue, a brush, a block of wood that's covered with packing tape, and a clamp. So some people will use tape, and they'll use the tape to fold the veneer in place like that. That's an okay idea. But in this particular case, I'm just going to hold that down and shove these fibers together like that, and then I'll clamp it. So I don't know if you can see that, but there's fuzzy fibers there. So we'll put a little glue in here, brush it around. I mentioned getting it back up underneath there. That should do enough. Never a bad idea to put some glue on the back. Shove this together. Now, generally speaking, I will use an animal glue, because it's water soluble and I don't have to worry about any squeeze out. And when I clamp this down, there's going to be squeeze out. I'll just kind of slide this in place, put a clamp on it, and that's what we're going to do to the radio cabinet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll get back with you when that's finished. Okay, the glue up is done. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, the packing tape kept it from lifting. And as I said, if there were glue on the surface here, a damp towel, damp rag would wipe hide glue off. The PVA glue that I used is a little harder to clean up if you have a lot of residue. It won't stick to this, but it'll stick to this. All right, so then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fill this. I think I mentioned that I'm going to paint this to achieve this finish. So the paint is actually kind of a tan, khaki color, I think some people call it. So the color of the filler doesn't really matter, but I will talk about that for a second. You can buy auto body filler, what people call Bondo a lot of times, which is a brand, and you can buy it in a yellow tone. You can also get the hardener in blue, clear, and red. If you take the yellow and the red and combine them, mix them together to harden the filler, you will actually have a wood tone. Typically Bondo is gray, and if you put blue with it, well, you're just going to get a bluish gray. It won't matter if you're going to paint it, as I'm going to do, but I'd always like to have something going towards the color that I'm looking to achieve in the end, especially if I was going to put stain over it. So I'll get what I have out and we'll mix it up and we'll fill this area. What I've done now is I've created an edge here that I can put my filler up against. Okay. Now I mentioned that you could get filler in a yellow color. We're going to put a little bit of pigment, and I don't know if you can see, but we're close to the base color of this. Now I mentioned that the hardener comes in clear, blue, red. I happen to have some red, so I'm going to use that edge. That has packing tape on it. Actually could have used a little edge around the corner there. I'm going to just lift one corner of this and give it a scrape like that. All right, this isn't too hard right now, but I'm going to go ahead and release this. I know we're going to have to do this again. I'll put new tape on it. There's my edge. That's how well it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a business card and I'm going to put it on the end of my sander here. What that does is it keeps that part of the block sander from sanding up in this area here. All I want to do is just give it a filing motion. You see I'm not sanding up in here at all. Where we left off, I was using the block to level out the filler, and I've gone ahead and applied some more filler, and now I've very carefully sanded this filler, kind of showing you that it's level here. Anyway, I like to call this part the forensic part, because if you look very carefully, here's our filler. This is the wood, which is an oak, and then you start to see the whitewash, and then you see the toner that's coming over the whitewash. We're just going to put a little sealer on this. It really doesn't matter what you use for sealer. It could be water-based, oil-based, whatever. It's just to help the rate of absorption. Now you can really see what we're dealing with. You can see what we have to tone, what we have to paint and how we're going to go ahead and blend it. I've added a little bit of that off-white to a palette here, and I'm going to use just a touch of water to make this kind of a wash. I've picked out a selection of brushes here that might be good, and I won't be afraid to trim one to a point if I have to. I will add just a drop of raw sienna. Well, I lost my battery somewhere along there, and I'm not sure what I need to redo, but just to recap, I mixed up some off-white, a little bit of raw sienna or burnt sienna, raw umber, making a glaze that looks a little bit like the original glaze that was on the back of this, where they didn't put the glaze that makes the blonde color. Using a flat brush, this is all water paint, a stenciling brush to kind of dab, a very, very fine brush to darken some of these streaks that have appeared. A little too much there. And I had one brush that was dipped in water to just kind of blend. I've gone ahead and flipped this over to the other side. This is where I have some stain, water damage stain. Using a painted glass so I can see through, I've been using the umber, the raw umber, the sienna, some glycerin, a little bit of water, and I had to add a tiny bit of white so that I could get this background color. I'm using a little bit of water here because this is supposed to be somewhat transparent. I don't know if I mentioned it, but if I didn't mention it, there's some orange. This is it up here. This is just acrylic orange from Artist Colors, and along with the umber, the raw umber, the burnt sienna, and the orange, that's where you get your color. If it's too dark, add a little white. So what I did, using some pigments seen there on the right, is I mixed up some colors, and I mixed them thin, and I made a little glaze, adding glycerin, and I did them in the order of left to right. In doing this, what I achieved was a little bit more of an opaque type of finish, and I did use a couple of spray guns on very low pressure, almost a spatter type of effect, like a clogged nozzle on a spray can, or perhaps a robin's egg speckle. This, along with some tools for graining, creates the type of look that you want to try to get. This is pretty much the final result. It's been lacquered with a couple of coats. And that's our final product. Well, the title of this video indicated that this wasn't going to be an easy task, and it wasn't. I had to change my method midway. Went from a more translucent type of application to something a little more opaque and speckled. But we learned together. I appreciate you watching the video. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'll try to answer your questions the best I can. Thank you.